Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
And welcome to our program. Today we're going to talk about a novel entitled The 10 Best Days of My Life. Okay, this is our literature unit for the month of June. Have you ever read this novel before, Stephanie?
No, I've never heard of it.
Well, it's good that we've heard of this today. And maybe I will be inspired to read this book myself, and maybe our readers will want to read it as well. Now, this is a book about going to heaven and kind of looking back on your life, trying to figure out exactly if you did good things in your life or if you did bad things in your life.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I thought the premise or the idea behind this novel was very interesting, and I like the conclusion. So let's get started, guys. We're going to read through day one, and then we'll be back to talk about this book.
29-year-old Alexandra Dorenfield never anticipated finding herself in heaven so soon. One morning, while walking her dog, she is hit by a Mini Cooper. When she regains consciousness, Alexandra discovers that both she and her dog have died and are in line at the entrance to heaven. Here she reunites with her beloved grandparents, who had passed away over 20 years ago. With the assistance of her family, Alexandra swiftly adapts to her new surroundings. She finds herself in seventh heaven, the highest level of paradise, where she can conjure anything she desires with merely a thought. She moves into her dream mansion, filled with limitless designer clothes and an array of exquisite cuisine. Since she has no calories to worry about, her concerns about her figure dissolve. Even more extraordinary is that the handsome man who fell in love with her at first sight at the gates of heaven lives right next door. Nevertheless, paradise comes with its own trials. Alexandra is informed that she must prove her worth in this utopia by compiling her 10 best days on earth. If Alexandra cannot convince the celestial judges, she will be demoted to fourth heaven. There, her accommodations will be restricted to an apartment and her wardrobe to out-of-season clothes. Furthermore, she will need to diet again and endure separation from her family, including her new boyfriend. So Alexandra decides to dive deep into her past to identify those perfect moments that might secure her place in seventh heaven. As she goes through her memories of love, laughter, and sorrow, she begins to comprehend what genuinely constitutes a life well lived. Okay, everybody, let's talk about today's lesson. We are finding life's true meaning in this book entitled The 10 Best Days of My Life. So if you want to find the true meaning of life, maybe you can read this book and find out. A lot of people try to figure out what life is all about by being religious or having all sorts of travel experiences or whatever, having friends and family. You can figure out, yes, why are we here? I know the answer, so I know what life's true meaning is, but I don't think it's very common for people to actually find this out after they have died. Okay, in this particular case, the protagonist, who is Alexandra Dorenfield, actually goes to heaven, and there are different levels of heaven, aren't there?
Yeah, according to this author's interpretation of heaven, there are different levels once you get there. And she's 29 when she's suddenly killed. Some accident happens to her. We're going to talk about that. But so she's lived some of her life, not a lot. I would say to pass away at 29 is very young. So she is out walking her dog and probably doesn't suspect anything. You know, a lot of people that are killed suddenly. I had a roommate who was actually hit by a truck while she was out walking, and there's no preparation for it. 1 minute she's there and 1 minute she's gone. So Alexandra never anticipated finding herself in heaven so soon. So if you anticipate something, you expect it. Maybe you're even looking forward to something happening. Maybe you expect it, look forward to, foresee something. Those are all words you could use. She never anticipated finding herself in heaven so soon. And as I said, she was walking her dog one morning when she was hit by a Mini Cooper. A Mini Cooper is pretty popular, I think. I've even seen Mini Coopers in Taiwan. I was walking this morning, Tom, and down one of the little alley streets in my neighborhood was a Mini Cooper parked. I bet they're expensive because you have to pay extra to import them into Taiwan, but they're awfully cute. I guess if you're going to be hit by a car, that's a good one to be hit by. I don't want to be hit by a car, nor would I want my beloved pet to be hit either. But here's the good news in this. Her pet goes with her to heaven.
Great! So both she and the dog die, and she is hit by a Mini Cooper. This kind of begs the question, if you were to be hit by a car and killed, what sort of car would you want it to be? I think a lot of people would say, I'd like to get run over by a BMW or a Mercedes-Benz or something like that. But for me, I think I'd like to get run over by a huge truck or a bus. It would be more dramatic that way. Although that's probably not very nice to the driver because the driver has to live with the fact that he ran you over or something like that.
It's horrible for the driver. My roommate was hit by a Mack truck, which is the biggest kind that transports a lot of goods and things, along our streets. But no, that driver, it really devastated him. So we're just kind of kidding around. We probably shouldn't kid about this stuff. It's serious for those who have lost loved ones this way. But yeah, I think they're trying to make it kind of cute. I can't imagine a Mini Cooper actually killing someone. They're so tiny. If you've ever seen a Mini Cooper.
Well, don't underestimate them. I'm sure if they're going fast enough, they can put you out of your misery pretty quickly. And when she regains consciousness, or when she comes to, as we sometimes say, when she regains consciousness, Alexandra discovers that both she and her dog have died and are in line at the entrance to heaven. So this is a fantasy a lot of people have. We see this in movies sometimes when people have died. Then they're lined up outside the pearly gates, the gate to heaven, and you're waiting your turn to go in, and supposedly God is there, or Jesus, whoever. They're going to judge you, and they're going to allow you in, or say, no, you can't come in. You've been a bad boy in your life. You've got to go to hell.
I think a lot of the Catholics who are Christian believe that Peter, is at the pearly gates. We always hear that, Peter at the pearly gates, questioning them. So she ends up in a line to the entrance to heaven, and here is where she reunites with her beloved grandparents. I'm sure she was really happy to see someone she knows, her beloved grandparents, or beloved, you could say, or pronounce that either way, beloved or beloved. They'd passed away over 20 years ago, so she was 9 when she lost her grandparents, so she must have been thrilled to see them. I am going to be thrilled to once again reunite with my grandparents, who are awfully wonderful people. So moving on to paragraph 2, it says, with the assistance of her family, Alexandra, which is the long form name to the nickname we often hear these folks called as Alex. My best friend's name is Alexandra, and I call her Alex, or Zan is another nickname. She swiftly adapts or gets used to her new surroundings. This word surroundings just means the things and the conditions around you. It's not just things like, trees or apartment buildings, things like that, but it's how things are set up, the conditions that are around you. I could say the park's beautiful surroundings enhance its appeal. It's why I like to go to the park, because I love the surroundings. So there are lots of good stores and restaurants around the park that I like to go to. So she quickly adapts or becomes comfortable in her new surroundings.
Right, the new place that she's got to get used to. She's trying to figure out where things are. Where's the department store? Where do I catch the bus? Where are the restaurants and things like that? So yeah, she gets used to her surroundings, and she finds herself in 7th heaven, the highest level of paradise, where she can conjure anything she desires with merely a thought. Okay, so according to this sentence, there are different levels of heaven. When I was growing up, I just learned that there was one. If you get into heaven, then everything's fine, everything's great there. But I didn't realize there were different levels of heaven. I did read Dante many years ago. I read Inferno, which is about hell. And according to that book, there are many different levels in hell. So maybe there are different levels in Paradiso, Dante's other book. I don't know. I never read that. Not a lot of people do, because Inferno is a lot more interesting. But in this particular case, She's in a level of heaven, and that's the highest you can go. She's actually starting from the top.
It actually says in the Bible there are different levels, but not a lot of Christian churches talk about it. Mine does. We know that there are different levels, but it's interesting, isn't it? I wanted to mention, though, we have a very famous idiom that we say, I'm in seventh heaven, or I'm walking on clouds. If you're in seventh heaven or you hear people use that expression, just means they're really happy, they're experiencing great joy. It could be because they've fallen in love or something terrific happened to them, but it's a way to express a lot of happiness. Wow, I'm in seventh heaven. So it's funny that she ends up in seventh heaven, which is kind of funny. So according to this author, she's in seventh heaven, the highest level of paradise. Paradise is supposed to be a place where everything's great and you feel perfect happiness. It's like utopia. We're going to get to that word in a minute. And she can conjure anything she desires with merely thinking about it. So if you conjure something, you imagine it. We'll often use the preposition up, conjure up something. But you don't have to use up with it, guys, just so you know. You can conjure something. You can create or bring something to mind. We often use it when we're talking about something that appears like it's magic. So the magicians seem to conjure a rabbit out of nowhere or conjured a rabbit out of a hat. Synonyms could be summon, create, produce. But conjure is sort of magical and it happens suddenly like, wow.
Yep, and I think a lot of people would like this to happen to them in their regular lives. Gee, if I just thought of it, I could have it. I don't have to wait to have that mansion in Bel Air or a nice place in the French Riviera. I can just wish it, and there it is. Although that kind of takes away the feeling of accomplishment when you actually work for something and then you finally get it. If you just get it by wanting it, well, it seems kind of cheap that way, at least to me. And she moves into her dream mansion filled with limitless designer clothes and an array of exquisite cuisine. So I guess that's what she likes. That's what she wants. She's going to move into a dream mansion. Okay, it's a mansion. It's a big, big, fancy house. And of course, if you got a lot of money, you can have a mansion. I'm not sure if you could say haojai is a mansion because a mansion is usually a separate house. It's not in a building. I know in Taiwan they have lots of luxury apartment buildings, but that's not really a mansion. The mansion does have to be a separate building with an estate and gardens and a garage and things like that.
Yeah, single family. It could include grandparents and grandkids and things like that, but it's just one family. It's not separate families. Yeah, you have to have a lot of money if you have a mansion. Usually has a lot of property as well, Tom, right? Mm-hmm. They've got a lot of grounds. Maybe a mansion includes a stable of horses. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty fancy. We can say that. So she moves into her dream mansion. If you've ever sat around dreaming about the perfect house, that would be your dream mansion, perhaps. But this mansion's also filled with things like limitless designer clothes. Designer clothes, probably the cheapest thing you can buy if it's designer is like $500 to $1,000. But usually the dresses are more like $5,000. I've walked in some of the stores, especially in New York, or even 101. They have designer stores there, and the price tags are kind of stunning. Makes your jaw drop. They're so expensive. So here she's got limitless designer clothes. I don't really care about designer labels. I just want something that looks pretty. But it also has something that would appeal to a lot of us, and that's an array of exquisite cuisine. Exquisite just means beautiful, delicate, the best of the best. And so she's got pretty much everything she could dream of there. We're going to continue talking about this, guys, but right now, it's probably a good time to take a break and listen to our Chinese teacher.
Hello everyone, I'm Patrick. 今天讲解的是6月10号 Finding Life's True Meaning in the 10 Best Days of My Life. 这个单元有2天的课文内容，介绍的是一部21世纪的美国小说，书名是 The 10 Best Days of My Life 最美好的那10天。书中的主角 在29岁的时候就因为车祸过世，他名字是 Alexandra Dorenfield。年纪轻轻的就车祸丧命，应该是相当不幸的。不过这个小说里面有趣的一点是，主角呢就在天堂重生了，而且住豪宅吃美食，穿的是名牌的衣服，还有帅哥住在他家的隔壁。不过啊，主人翁还没有获得永久的居留权，可以永远住在这么美好的天堂。他要找出之前他还在世的时候最美好的10天，那才能够通过呢考验。继续留在这里。好，那我们一起来看学习重点吧。请看到第1段的第3个句子 When she regains consciousness， 那前面讲到主人翁出车祸了嘛，被车子撞了，后来恢复意识，清醒过来，我们英文所用的动词片语就是 regains consciousness。 好，那再来请看到第2段的第3个句子，这里有一个 designer clothes。什么是设计师衣服啊？其实就是很贵很贵的这些名牌服饰。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, welcome back, everybody. Again, we're summarizing our featured novel for the month of June. It's entitled The 10 Best Days of My Life. Now, remember, this story is about Alexandra Dorenfield. She's 29 years old, and she got run over by a Mini Cooper. She and her dog both died. They ended up going to heaven. They were at the entrance to heaven, but she found out that there were actually 7 levels of heaven. And yes, indeed, if she gets into 7th heaven, she can conjure up anything she desires. She just has to think about it. So she wanted to have the best in her life. That's what she wanted all her life. She got a big mansion. It was her dream mansion. It had lots of designer clothes in there. It had a variety of exquisite cuisine, maybe a horse stable, an Olympic-sized swimming pool. You name it, she probably was able to get it just by wishing for it in her head.
Pretty nice, but I agree with Tom. I think when you have to work for something and maybe even have to save for it, it means a lot more, right? I think it's a lot more rewarding. That's why some of these really rich kids who are spoiled and just handed things they don't have to work for, they don't appreciate them like maybe their parents did who didn't start out rich and had to work and earn and save for a long time. So those things are important. So since she has no calories to worry about, her concerns about her figure dissolve. So if you have calories, it's a unit of energy that we use to measure food energy. So once you eat something, how much energy does that food provide? We know that some calories are considered to be empty calories because all they do is they make your body put on more fat. You know, instead of helping you burn fat, they put it on and it doesn't want to leave very easily. If you're talking about a figure here, and you're not talking about numbers, you're talking about someone's body shape, and she doesn't have to worry about those calories staying on her body because they kind of just dissolve. Dissolve means to just disappear, to leave. Or if you're talking about maybe you have a cup of hot liquid and you want to put something that's solid into that, if you put it into hot liquid, it will dissolve or mix really well into the hot liquid that we use the word dissolve for as well.
Like instant coffee.
Yeah, so here, she can eat whatever she wants. Those calories just kind of disappear. They don't stay. And she doesn't have to worry about them, which sounds like heaven to me, Tom.
It does, but I did want to mention that if you are thin, you are comparing yourself to other people who are not thin. So it's really great if you're thin and others aren't. And also it's great if you have that big mansion and other people don't. If you're in 7th heaven, well, everybody's going to wish for this. So everybody's going to have the same things. And therefore, your having one won't seem so special. So that's something you might want to consider if you're going to heaven. Be careful of what you wish for because you might just get it.
Yeah, but people who go to heaven are happy to have those around them have the same things.
Well, supposedly, right?
Yeah.
So maybe they can be satisfied with living in a tent or something like that.
You're happy for everybody.
Who knows? But in any case here, even more extraordinary, even more special or unbelievable is that the handsome man who fell in love with her at first sight at the gates of heaven lives right next door. So that's really, really great. First of all, this sentence tells us a lot. First of all, when she was at the gates of heaven, she met a handsome man. Hey, how you doing? Hey, how are you? I've been waiting for you all my life. So, of course, they fell in love, or he fell in love with her at first sight. Love at first sight. The first time you saw somebody, you fell in love with them. And hey, that's great. Boy, I wish I could see this guy again. I'm in love with him. He loves me. Gee, I hope we can meet again. But she finds out, hey, he lives right next door. How convenient.
Nevertheless, paradise comes with its own trials. Trials here just means difficulties, hard things that you have to go through. So what is, what are the difficulties that she's facing? Alexandra is informed, she's told by somebody that she must prove her worth in this utopia. And how does she do that? She's told she has to compile or put together her 10 best days on Earth to kind of prove that she deserves to be there. Utopia is an imagined place where everything's perfect, society is perfect, it has everything you could ever desire. That's utopia. So this is what she is tasked with doing. She has to put together those 10 best days on Earth.
Yep, she has to remember what they were, and she has to present them to the judges at the gates of heaven. And if Alexandra cannot convince the celestial judges, she will be demoted to fourth heaven. Okay, that's not so bad. At least they're not going to send her to hell. But here she has to convince the celestial judges. Okay, if you convince someone of something, you persuade them, you get them to believe what you think. You want to convince somebody. For example, if you're a judge or something, or if you're a lawyer in a court case, you want to convince the jury that your client is innocent or the person you're prosecuting is guilty. So you have to convince the jury of the guilt or innocence of that person. In this particular case, she needs to convince the celestial judges. And celestial just means having to do with heaven or the universe.
That's right. So it says here, if she cannot do that, if she can't convince those judges, she'll be demoted to fourth heaven. Celestial just means part of heaven. If you're demoted, you're kind of reduced or downgraded to a certain position. Maybe you've been demoted because you're in the army and you didn't do as you were instructed or commanded to do by your military officer. You might be demoted, moved to a lower position or a lower rank. So this is her task. There in the fourth heaven, it says, her accommodations will be restricted to an apartment. No mansion, just a very small apartment. And her wardrobe will be full of out-of-season clothes. Out of season means out of style, right? So her clothes won't be very stylish. They certainly won't be designer. Wardrobe here just means a set of clothing, all of those clothing. Here it does not refer to a closet that we keep our clothes in. It refers to the actual clothes. So furthermore, she will need to diet again. Oh no, calories suddenly count one more time. And she has to endure or go through a separation from her family. That's the hard part, I think. To endure means you have to continue or survive through something that's really difficult or challenging. It's not easy to endure things that are difficult for you, including being separated from her new boyfriend. He will not be in fourth heaven.
My goodness, that actually sounds like Earth itself. I didn't know Earth could exist in heaven as well. But yes, she has to endure separation from her family, and that means she won't be around her new boyfriend. She'll have to settle for somebody who lives next door. Maybe that person is a plumber or a janitor or something. Who wants to marry a guy like that? Now, here in the next paragraph it says, so Alexandra decides to dive deep into her past to identify those perfect moments that might secure her a place and seventh heaven. So she's been given a homework assignment here. She needs to think of some ideas. She needs to dive deep into her past. She needs to reflect on her life and think, what were some good days in my life? Not just really good days for me, but maybe days in which I really helped out somebody where I could get some points in heaven, like, oh, you helped that old lady cross the street, or you saved the life of somebody who was about to get run over by a Mini Cooper or something like that. So yes, she needs to think carefully about what she did in her life, and she needs to identify those 10 best days.
Interesting, huh? She begins to comprehend or understand at a deeper level what genuinely constitutes a life well lived. What makes up a life well lived? Genuinely here means truly, honestly, in a very sincere way. Constitute means to form or to make up something. We use it to talk about teams, like what constitutes a good baseball team? Well, you need players who are good in the outfield, the infield, good pitching, good hitting. So constitute, she has to spend some time coming up with those 10 best days. I love the idea behind this novel. I think it's really great. Notice it's not just the happy days either. They're asking her to come up with days that were perhaps very sad, because here it says sorrow, which means great sadness. We're going to continue talking about this, guys, but right now, we've run out of time for day one. We're going to listen to our Chinese teacher one more time.
再来，请看到同样第二段的第4个句子 Since she has no calories to worry about. 在天堂吃东西有个好处，不需要担心热量吸收过多。Her concerns about her figure dissolve. 所以关于身材方面的忧虑呢 dissolve. 要请同学看到的是 dissolve 这个动词。那原本呢，这个 dissolve 在物理上的意思，那就是说像糖溶在水里面，我们可以说 sugar dissolves in water。那也可以进一步引申出来，就是什么样子的感觉不见了。那比方说，有时候我们做事情遇到比较大的困难，难免勇气会丧失，所以可以说 his courage dissolved。好，那再来，请同学呢看到第5个句子，最后一个句子，就是我们的主人翁隔壁住了谁啊？有一个很帅的男子。好，那这个男子呢，跟他一见钟情 ，handsome man who fell in love with her at first sight。所以 love at first sight 就是一见钟情。再来，请同学呢看到第3段，第3段的第1句，相当于就是主题句的位置，开宗明义就让我们知道要描述的就是主角在天堂所面临的考验。所以我们看 Paradise comes with its own trials。 好，那到底是哪样的考验呢？第2句其实就在说明前面的这个 trials。 好，那 Alexandra 她有个任务，是什么任务呢？ She must prove her worth in this utopia。 要证明自己的价值哦。那怎么证明呢？要找出她在人世间最美好的是哪10天。好，那后面第3句我们看到，就是没有办法通过考验会有的后果。If she cannot convince the celestial judges， 这个 celestial 其实就是天上的、天空的。这里有一个拉丁文的字根这个 celest 这个部分。好，那这就是天上的、天空的意思。这里指的当然就是天堂的这一些可以决定他是否有权继续居留的这些裁判。那他们会去判断，如果他可以找出那10天最美好的10天的话，那才可以留在天堂。要不然 she will be demoted to fourth heaven， 会被降到 demote 其实就是 promote 的相反。 promote 如果是我们一般说升职升迁的话，那 demote 就是贬值咯，它会被贬到第4重天去。好，那到了第4重天会有什么后果呢？也就在第4句、第5句我们可以看得到，到时候他穿的衣服会是 out of season clothes， 这些衣服都是过季的。此外呢，第5句 Furthermore she will need to diet again， 那 diet 也可以当作动词哦，那他就必须要再度节食，要注意自己的饮食，以免呢身材走样。再来，我们看到第4段的第一个句子 So Alexandra decides to dive deep into her past. Dive deep into her past， 请同学呢把 dive into 画起来，这边指的并不是一般的潜水，而是深入研究，投入某样东西，带有呢强烈的热情和精力，就把它比喻成就像跳水一样嘛，完全的投入在这里面。好，那再来请同学呢看到第2个句子，老师想要特别说的是后面的 a life well lived， 有没有觉得非常的奇怪？一般而言，我们的形容词会放在名词这个 life 前面修饰，为什么这个 well lived 放在 life 的后面呢？的确是有一点点不寻常，不过我们可以把它这样子理解哦。这个形容词它如果是副词加上过去分词的时候，你放在名词后面，会有一种像个小句子在修饰，提供更多的资讯。其实这里的 a life well lived 其实就是 a life that has been well lived。 那 a life well lived 这种结构呢，其实看起来虽然比较少见，不过并不是完全的罕见哦。比方说我们可以讲 a story beautifully told， a city long forgotten， 一座被遗忘已久的城市。好，那以上呢就是我们针对这一个课文第一天内容所做的中文讲解。
All right, everyone, that brings us to the end of our program for today. Make sure you join us again next time for another edition of our program. We're going to continue talking about our featured work of literature for the month of June, The 10 Best Days of My Life. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.